Hare
Hey
Krishna.
Krishna, welcome to another wonderful session. And today we will be discussing on how to overcome greed.
Hare Bol. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya
Jnananjana
Jnananjanashalakaya
Shalakaya
Chakshurun
Chakshurun
Militam
Militam Yena
Yena
Tasmai
Tasmai
Shri
Shri
Gurave
Gurave
Namaha
Namaha
Nama
Nama
Om
Om Vishnu
Vishnu
Padaya
Padaya Krishna
Krishna
Prishtaya
Prishtaya
Bhutale
Bhutale
Srimate
Srimate
Bhakti
Bhakti
Vedanta
Vedanta
Swami
Swami
Niti
Niti Namine
Namine
Namaste
Namaste Saraswate
Saraswate
Deve
Deve
Gauravani
Gauravani
Pracharine
Pracharine
Nirvishesha
Nirvishesha
Shunyavadi
Shunyavadi
Paschatya
Paschatya
Deshatarine
Deshatarine
Jaya
Jaya
Shri
Shri
Krishna
Krishna
Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Prabhu
Prabhu
Nityananda
Nityananda
Shri
Shri
Advaita
Advaita
Gadadhara
Gadadhara
Shrivasadi
Shrivasadi
Gaura
Gaura
Bhakta
Bhakta
Vrinda
Vrinda
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna, Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare
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 Rama,
Rama
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama
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 Rama,
Rama
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare.
Hare Krishna, we'd like to welcome all of the wonderful devotees who have joined us over YouTube Live, over Facebook Live, and dear devotees who have joined us over Zoom. We welcome each and every one of you to this day 3 of the session, which is entitled The Six Enemies of the Mind. And today we are going to deal with the topic of how to overcome greed.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, text 21 says,
त्रिविधं
Trividham
नरकास्येदं
narakasyedam
ध्रुवं
dvaram
न
noshanam
शनम् आत्मनः
atmanaha kama
कामक्रोधस्तथा
krodhastatha lobhas tasmadetat
लोभस्तस्मादेतत् त्रयं
trayam tyajet.
त्यजेत्.
There are three gates leading to hell: lust, anger, and greed. And every sane man must give this up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. And there are many examples of how people have fallen victim to this misgiving, this anartha of greed.
Lobha.
And then there are those who have overcome lobha, greed.
So, one of the most striking examples of lobha or greed from the Srimad Bhagavatam is we see Vali, who is the brother of Sugriva. You see, Vali had earlier performed a lot of tapasya and he had gotten very special blessings from all the devatas and he wanted immortality, but he could not get it. So, just like Hiranyakashipu, he asked for immortality. Sorry, he asked for immortality in a very indirect way by saying that whoever I am fighting with, that person's powers should actually come to me. So obviously he will be never defeated in battle. So this way, Vali actually would become very, very strong. Anytime he would go into battle, he would come back so much more stronger than any of his opponents. And out of his, greed, Vali actually attacked his own brother, Sugriva. Sugriva was a very, person who was always very obedient to his brother. But, Vali, out of his greed, he attacked Sugriva. And although there was no fault of Sugriva, he insulted him and exiled him and threatened to take away his life. And he even went to the extent of taking the wife of Sugriva as his own wife. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada actually describes Vali to be an aggressor, an atatai, you know. So this is how we understand that how much greed Vali had. And then when Lord Ramachandra, of course, he delivered Vali by killing him in the fight between Sugriva and Vali. And Vali was so blessed that he actually, gave his only son Angada in the service of Lord Ramachandra. So his greed was, curbed by the powerful arrow of Lord Sri Ramachandra.
There is another example of King Shatrajit and the Shamantaka jewel that is described in the Krishna book. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto, 56th chapter, 2nd verse, Maharaj Parikshit inquires, my dear Brahmana Shukadev Goswami, what did King Shatrajit do to offend Lord Krishna? Where did he get the Shamantaka jewel, and why did he give his daughter to the Supreme Lord Krishna? So Shukadev Goswami, he said, well, Surya, the sun god, he felt great affection for his devotee Shatrajit, and acting as his greatest friend, Suryadev gave him the jewel called Shamantaka as a token of his satisfaction. And wearing that jewel on his neck, Shatrajit entered Dwarka. And then he shone very brightly like the sun itself. And everyone thought, hey, this is the sun coming in. O king, and then he went unrecognized because of the jewel's effulgence, because no one could see him. There was so much effulgence coming out of his jewel. And as the people were looking at Satyajit from a distance, his brilliance just blinded them. And and they presumed this must be sun god who has come to Dwarka to see Lord Krishna. And then they all ran to tell Lord Krishna, who was at that time, he was playing dice. So the residents of Dwarka, they said, my dear Narayan, O holder of the conch shell, disc and club, O lotus-eyed Damodar, O Govinda, O cherished descendant of Yadu, obeisances to you. Lord Savita. Savita means sun.
One of the names of Lord Surya is Savita.
Has come to see you, O Lord of the universe. He is blinding everyone's eyes with his immensely effulgent rays. And all the devatas, the exalted devatas in the three worlds, are certainly anxious to seek you out, O Lord. So now that you have hidden yourself amongst the Yadu dynasty, Sun God has come to see you here. Hearing these innocent words from these very innocent Dwarkavasis, the lotus-eyed Lord, he smiled broadly and he said, my dear devotees, this is not Sun God. This is not Ravi, but rather this is Shatrajit, who is glowing because of his jewel. Krishna is the Paramatma in everyone's heart. He understands everything that's going on. On a black night, on a dark rock, a black baby ant, no one sees, but the Paramatma sees.
Krishna sees.
Krishna sees. So King Satyajit entered the opulent home, and all of these festivities and auspicious rituals were performed. And then he entered and he had Brahmanas install the Shamantaka jewel in the house, temple room of the house. And each day this jewel would actually produce 8 bhara of gold. And the place in which it was kept, it was properly worshipped. And wherever it was kept, it would be free from all calamities such as famine, untimely death, also of evils like the snake bites, mental and physical disorders, and the presence of very deceitful persons. It would be free from all of that.
Very well. And it is said that on one occasion, Sri Krishna, this is in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in Canto 10, chapter 56, in text 12, Srila Shukadev Goswami says that on one occasion, Lord Krishna actually requested Shatrajit to give the jewel to the Yadu king, because Krishna said that, the best things in the kingdom should be offered to the king. So Krishna said that, please, you can offer, you have the Shamantaka jewel. Why are you keeping the Shamantaka jewel in your home? This way no one is able to see. But if it is kept in the king's palace, and we make a nice temple at the outside of the palace, then everyone in Dwarka will be able to see. The glory of the Shamantaka jewel will be increased. But Shatrajit was so greedy because the Shamantaka jewel was yielding so much gold every day, and there was so much side effects, the benefits of all evil things disappearing wherever Shamantaka jewel is. So, because he was so greedy of this, effect of the Shamantaka jewel, he refused the words of Krishna. And Shatrajit gave no thought to the seriousness of the request of Krishna. And because of this, he committed an offense to by denying the Supreme Lord's request. So this is what is said in connection to the Shamantaka jewel. Of course, the pastime goes on how the Shamantaka jewel was stolen. Krishna was blamed for it, and then Krishna himself came. And then, because of the Shamantaka jewel pastime, Krishna actually got blessed with two wives. One is Jambavati, the daughter of Jambavan, whom first Krishna fought with and got the Shamantaka jewel. And then he gave it to Shatrajit. But then Shatrajit realized, oh, I have done so much offense to Krishna. So therefore, he actually offered the Shamantaka jewel back to Krishna, and along with his daughter, Satyabhama. So Shatrajit's daughter is Satyabhama, and she was offered to Krishna by Shatrajit, along with the Shamantaka jewel. So this is the pastime of the Shamantaka jewel.
कृष्ण सेवा कामार्पणे क्रोध भक्त द्वेषी
Bhaktadveshi
जने
Jane
लोभ
Lobha
साधु
Sadhu
संगे हरि
Sange
कथा
Harikatha
मोह इष्ट
Moha
लभ
Ishta
विने मद
Mada
कृष्ण
Krishna
गुण
Guna
गाने
Gane
निजुक्त
Nijukta
करिबा
Koriba
जथा
Jatha
तथा
Tatha.
Lobha sadhu sanga harikatha. I will eagerly, greedily listen to the stories about Krishna in the company of the devotees. That is laulyam, that is lobha. That is how we use lobha in the service of Krishna. In fact, greed, if we want to overcome greed, greed can be overcome by generosity.
Haribo.
And the perfect example of that, of generosity, in Srimad Bhagavatam is King Rantidev. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, King Rantidev, his glorious character is narrated. He is the son of Bharadwaja. The son of Bharadwaja was Manyu, and Manyu's sons were Brikastra, Jaya, Mahavirya, Nara, Garga, and all these five. Nara had a name Sankrit, who had two sons, and Guru and Rantidev. And as an exalted devotee, Rantidev saw every living entity in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so he completely engaged his mind, his words, his very self in the service of the Supreme Lord and his devotees. In fact, King Rantidev was so exalted that he would sometimes give his own food in charity. And he and his whole family would fast.
Haribo.
So one time, after King Rantidev spent 48 days fasting, not even drinking water,
Krishna Krishna.
after 48 days of doing this, excellent food was made with ghee and was brought to him. And as he was about to break his fast, a Brahmana guest appeared. So Rantideva immediately kept the morsel of food and offered a portion of the food to the Brahmana.
And once the Brahmana left and Rantidev was just about to again start eating, at that time a Shudra came. So first a Brahmana, now a Shudra. And then Rantidev then did not discriminate. He just divided the remaining food with his relatives, and Rantidev he offered his food to the Shudra. And when Rantidev was about to eat his own share, that time Of course, next after the Shudra, once the Shudra had his thing, another guest came. And this guest was surrounded by dogs, and he said that, "Oh, my dear king, I and my company of dogs are very hungry. Please give us something to eat." So it was a Chandala, not even a Shudra, a Chandala, a dog, who is the master of all the dogs. He came with his hungry dogs. And with great respect, Rantidev Maharaj did not discriminate. With great respect, King Rantidev offered the balance, whatever that little bit portion was remaining, he offered the balance of the food to the dogs and to the master of the dogs who came as his guests. And the king offered them all respects and obeisances.
And then all he had with him was drinking water. And there was just enough to satisfy one person. And when the king said, "I'm so happy, I'm giving so many things in charity, all my food in charity, let me drink this water and be satisfied." And so when he maybe the Supreme Lord wants me to just drink water. But as he was about to drink it, a Chandala appeared and he said, "I'm low born. Please give me some water." And King Rantidev was thanking Lord Krishna for this opportunity to serve. And he was very aggrieved at hearing these pitiable words of this poor, fatigued Chandala. And so Maharaj Rantidev spoke these nectarian words. In fact, these words like nectar or amrita. Therefore, aside from rendering bodily service to an aggrieved person, by his words alone the king could save the life of anyone who could hear him. Such were his nectarian words.
You see, sometimes when we speak, when we speak, our speech should be very pleasing, not to just to, who is hearing or whom we are speaking it to, but whoever may be hearing. So even if we have to say something unpleasant, if we say it in a good way, in a nice way, then at least it is palatable and the sharp words don't really hurt. So that is what Sri Rantidev Maharaj is teaching by his own example.
And then he said, King Rantidev was saying, by offering my water to maintain the life of this poor Chandala, he who is struggling to live, just by giving this charity of water, I have been freed from all hunger, all thirst, all fatigue, all trembling of the body because of weakness or moroseness or distress or lamentation and illusion. And King Rantidev, even though he was on the verge of death because of his thirst, he gave his own portion of water to the Chandala without hesitation. And the king was very naturally kind and sober. Now, the Devatas like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, who can satisfy all materially ambitious men by giving them all the rewards that they desire, they manifested their own identities before King Rantidev because it was they who had presented themselves as the Brahmana, as the Shudra, as the Chandala, and so on. King Rantidev had no ambition to enjoy material benefits from the Devatas. He offered them obeisances, but because he was factually attached to Lord Vishnu, Vasudev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he fixed his mind on Lord Vishnu's lotus feet. And so this whole pastime was all ordained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead just to glorify his devotee. Krishna puts his devotees into challenging situations just to glorify them. See how surrendered, still they are so surrendered to me. To show how tolerant a devotee is in rendering the service to the Lord. And then the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was extremely pleased with Rantidev and then entrusted Rantidev with very confidential service. And this special power to render this most confidential service is entrusted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead only to pure devotee, not to ordinary devotees.
So, when a devotee becomes extremely eager to relish the nectar of Krishna's lotus feet, lolium, greedy for Krishna's katha, the quality of greed also finds its true purpose. This is how we can dovetail greed. One can become very greedy for Krishna's devotional service and likewise also become very eager and become fully Krishna conscious in this very lifetime. And Srila Prabhupada says that just like the gopis, they were always hankering, they were always thinking, when we will see Krishna? When shall we see Krishna? When? And when will I meet Krishna? So therefore, Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu says, Shunyayitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahena Me. That in separation from Govinda, this entire world actually seems shunya, it seems empty, hollow. So, this is how we can actually utilize lobha or greed. Then, lobha becomes properly utilized, greed is properly utilized. And in this context, in the Sri Gopi Geet from Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 31, the gopis are singing Madhuraya Gira Valguvakyaya Buddhamanojnaya Pushkarekshana Vidhikaririma Viramuyati Adharasidhuna Pyayayasvana.
O lotus-eyed one, your sweet voice and charming words, which attract the minds of the intelligent, are bewildering us more and more. Our dear hero, please revive your maid servants with the nectar of your lips.
So we can see how the Vrajavadhus, the gopis, they are hankering, they are becoming so lolium of Krishna's Adharamrita, the nectar from Krishna's lotus mouth. Actually, Charbita Tambul. Krishna, he actually, bites on the Tambula pan and the betel leaf, and then the gopis are saying, give us that your bitten pan leaf, so we can actually make our lives successful by relishing the nectar of your mouth or of your lips. This is adharamrita. So this is how we must develop and dovetail our greed for Krishna and his services, his devotional service, and service to the devotees. We must be greedy in this way. So, this brings us to the end of today's session. We thank you all very much. You can please share any questions that you may have, and they will definitely try to answer your questions. Thank you all so much.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai.